Shalom Yasharala, peace Israel, all praises to Yahawashi. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Honors and blessings to the hopeful elect. Shalom. Once again, Kal Halal Yahawashi, Waharakakwadash. Proof that the Israelites existed. Proof of the Israelites being in ancient Egypt. I'm in the book here, the Encyclopedia of Ancient Egypt. The general editor of this book is Helen Struwick. I'm going to go to page 62. The Hyksos. All right, at the top there it says history, second intermediate period, 1650 till 1550 BC. The Hyksos, settlers from Syria and Palestine. What is Palestine? The land of Israel. So these settlers came from the land of Israel, rose to power in Egypt during the political vacuum of the second intermediate period, 1650 till 1550 BC. Okay, so these settlers came from Palestine, also known as the land of Canaan, during that time. Towards the end of the 12th dynasty, 1985 to 1795 BC, many immigrants from the regions of Syria and Palestine settled in the eastern delta around the town of Avaris, modern-day Tel El Daba. So these immigrants that came from the land of Israel were Jacob and his sons. Okay? And before them came Jacob's son Joseph, because Joseph was sold into slavery in Egypt. Okay, but after Joseph was established in Egypt, his family came to Egypt because there was a famine in the land of Canaan. Okay, so these immigrants would have to be Jacob and his sons. Okay, and let me get that really quick. Exodus chapter 1, verse 1. Now these are the names of the sons of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. So that's the point right there. So these immigrants would have to be Jacob and his sons. Okay? And don't put too much focus on these dates, because like the scriptures say, we know in part and we prophesy in part. So we're not going to get the fullness of the exact time period that this all took place until the kingdom of heaven comes. When Yahawashi comes back, everything is going to be made perfect. And then we'll know the exact dates. But we have enough to prove that the Israelites exist. And they were in ancient Egypt. Okay? That's the whole point of this video. And it says, although despised by the native Egyptians as Hyksos, rulers of foreign lands, which that's what Hyksos mean. Okay? That's what it means. It says Near Eastern nomads. The word Hyksos is the Greek form of the Egyptian Heka Kaswat, meaning rulers of foreign lands, which would have to be the Israelites, because when you break down the name Israel in the Hebrew, it's Yashar Allah. Yah is he, Shar is prince, Allah is God or power. So he's a prince of the power. He's a prince of God. A prince is a ruler. And we were called rulers of foreign lands because we came from the land of Canaan down into Egypt. Although despised by the native Egyptians as Hyksos, rulers of foreign lands, over the next 100 years, these immigrants integrated into Egyptian society. Now it says 100 years. That's why I said don't pay too much attention to these different time periods they give you. and the length of time that they give you, because according to the scriptures, it was 30 years. It took 30 years for us to integrate into Egyptian society and for us to become powerful. Okay, going back during the time of Joseph. All right, it took 30 years because we were in Egypt 430 years. 30 years we integrated, and that in that 400-year period we were enslaved. Okay, which I'm going to get all that very soon, but now I'm just proving the point. All right, showing how we became mighty in Egypt first before the Egyptians took us down. All right, and it says during the same period, centralized Egyptian power was breaking down, with some 70 minor rulers claiming sovereignty over different parts of Egypt. It is unclear if the Hyksos took over the delta by force or simply became the majority. And that's what happened. And I'm going to read that too. But by 1650, now keep this date in mind, because this is important, and I'm going to show why. But by 1650, they ruled over the Lower Egypt. They ruled over Lower Egypt from their capital, Avaris. Okay, so we became the majority. This is Exodus chapter 1, verse 7. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. That's the point right there. That's the point. Okay, and it says, from there they extended their power to Memphis and into Middle Egypt. Meanwhile, in the south, Egyptian kings of the 17th dynasty ruled over Upper Egypt from Thebes. The Theban kings, although violently opposed to foreign rule, were militarily weak, and an alliance struck between the Hyksos and Nubia left them threatened from the north and the south. So keep in mind, the Theban kings, or the Egyptians, were militarily weak at the time. Okay? It took an extraordinary diplomatic incident to fuel the flames of war. Now let's read this. Exodus chapter 1, verse 8. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the sons of Israel are more and mightier than we. So we became the majority, and we became stronger than them. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Okay, so eventually the Egyptians, the Theban kings, took us down. Okay, they saw that we were forming an alliance with Nubia, you know, according to this information that's presented. They saw that we were forming an alliance with Nubia, so they acted quickly, okay, to take us down, so we wouldn't overpower them, so we wouldn't have them in slavery, because it all boiled down to power. Okay, and these are scarabs proving that the Hyksos existed. Okay, and this is from a wall in Egypt. Okay, as a matter of fact, they basically have it down here. Okay, but when you look in certain tomb walls, they show you paintings of the Hyksos, and as you can see, these are men with afros. Okay, they have dark bushy beards, they have garments. Okay, and in the book they show the women also. These are the women. All right, and you see the men here. Okay, they have the afros, they have the beards. So that's the point. That's the point right there. And this is one of the kings that took us down. All right, his name is Amos the first. Okay. And it says statue of Amos the first, founder and the first pharaoh of the new kingdom, Amos the first, 1550 to 1525 BC, was the son of Theban ruler Ta'ah the second, circa 1560 BC, and brother of Kamos, 1555 to 1550 BC, both of whom waged war against the Hyksos. Amos the first completed the conquest of the Hyksos by capturing their capital of Avaris and finally driving them out of Egypt. They didn't drive us out of Egypt. What happened is they enslaved us, according to what the scriptures say. Because see, we really go by what the Holy Scriptures say. We go by what the word says, okay? Now I'm going to prove another point through the Spirit, okay? For you brothers that have watched the presentation that us Akim did, you know, me and the brothers in San Francisco, you know, those brothers, they took me to the Rosicrucian Museum, an Egyptian museum with a lot of information. It packed a lot of heat, and a lot of information proved that the Israelites were in Egypt, in particular the Hyksos. Okay, so I'm going to read some of this from Wikipedia. The elder Yakal brought this out. All right, the elder brother Yakal from San Francisco. All right, it says Yaqub Har, which really is Yaqub Har, and that should ring a bell. Okay, that should ring a bell in your mind. Who was Yaqub Har? It says Meruser Yaqub Har. Other spelling, Yaqub Har, also known as Yaqbaal, was a pharaoh of Egypt during the 17th or 16th century BCE. As he reigned during Egypt's fragmented second intermediate period, it is difficult to date his reign precisely, and even the dynasty to which he belonged is uncertain. But he was a Hyksos ruler, and I'm going to read that. All right, so you have the name Yaqub or Yaqub. Really is Yaqub. Yaqub is the Hebrew word for Jacob, and Har is the Hebrew word for mountain. So mountain of Jacob, or Jacob's mountain. The nation of Israel, the Israelites, came into Egypt. All right, we were called the Hyksos or Hekakaswat by the Egyptians, rulers of foreign lands. Okay, you know, so Jacob's mountain, Yaqub Har. I'm going to read this down here. It says chronological position. The dynasty to which Yaqub Har belongs is debated, with Yaqub Har being seen variously as a 14th dynasty king, an early Hyksos ruler of the 15th dynasty, or a vassal of the Hyksos kings. Yaqub Har is attested by no less than 27 scarab seals. 3 are from Canaan, 4 from Egypt, 1 from Nubia, and the remaining 19 are of unknown provenance. And that's what they tell you. But a lot of times Esau, he likes to hide these different artifacts for himself. He keeps them tucked away. The wide geographic repetition of these scarabs indicate the existence of trade relations among the Nile Delta, Canaan, and Nubia during the second intermediate period. Okay, and this is one of the scarab seals here. It's a scarab with the cartouche of Yaqub Har in the British Museum. And that's something. See, Esau, the so-called white man, he likes to take our history, he likes to take our artifacts and capitalize off of them. He puts them in museums. Okay, the history of the Hyksos he puts in the British Museum. Just like even dealing with the northern kingdom of Israel, the 10 tribes, they have a lot of their history. Esau has a lot of their history in the British Museum. All right, I'm on the next page, and I'm going to read under popular speculation. In Exodus Decoded, filmmaker Simcha Jacob Ovinci suggested that he was the patriarch Jacob on the basis of a signet ring found in the Hyksos capital Avaris that read Yakub from Yaquab or Yaquab Har, similar to the Hebrew name of the biblical patriarch Jacob. And they have Yaakov, which really is Yaquab. Okay? It's Yaquab. All right, so even Esau knows that this ring, this signet ring, okay, goes back to Yaquab, the patriarch Jacob. Okay? Now, they're speaking to you about some other things also. How a signet ring could have been given to Joseph. Okay? And it's possible. All right? I'll read some of it. Well, I'll read the rest of it for you. Jacob Ovinci ignores the fact that Yaquab Har is a well-attested pharaoh of the second intermediate period, and Yaakov and variants are common Semitic, not just Hebrew. Esau being the devil. Names from the period. Furthermore, Jacob Ovinci provides absolutely no explanation as to why Joseph would have a signet ring with the name of his father, Jacob, and not his own, which is a modern day equivalent of signing legal contracts with a signature of one's father. All right, but the point is, Yaquab Har, he was a Hyksos ruler. Okay? And Yaquab, that's Jacob in Hebrew. Okay? And to bring back home another point, from 1650 BC, which is when the Hyksos completely integrated into the Egyptian society, from 1650 BC all the way to 1213 BC, which is the end of the rule of Ramses the Great. That's about 437 years. And Ramses the Great, he's the pharaoh that most scholars speculate to have been the pharaoh during the time of the Exodus. Okay? So that's about 430 years. Okay? From 1650 BC, when the Hyksos were completely integrated into the Egyptian society, from 1650 BC all the way to 1213 BC, towards the end of Ramses the Great's reign. Okay? All right, now let me read some of this. It says Ramses the Great. Okay, it says Pharaoh Ramses II was one of the greatest of the Egyptian kings and ruled ancient Egypt at a time of political and economic strength for an incredible 66 years. Ramses II, the third pharaoh of the 19th dynasty, ruled from 1279 to 1213 BC. Okay? And that's all I need to get on that. You know, you can read more about him as far as his greatness. Okay? And everything that he did. But as great as he was, he's the pharaoh that most scholars speculate to have been taken down during the time of the Exodus. Okay? Because according to the scriptures, the pharaoh, Ramses, and his army were drowned in the Red Sea. Okay? Now, there are a lot of lies and a lot of misinterpretations out there. You know, there's a lot of disinformation. Okay. But I'm bringing this out to just show you that the history of the world coincides with the Bible, because the history of the world is contained in the Bible. Now, I spoke about how from 1650 to 1213 BC is about 430 years. And I did the math. It says 437. Okay, but it's roughly about 430 years. Okay. All right, now I'm going to read this. This is Exodus chapter 12 and verse 40. Now the sojourning of the sons of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. Okay. And we were enslaved 400 years out of that 430. Get that scripture really quick. Get Genesis chapter 15 and verse 13. And he said unto Abram, this he is the Most High, said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Okay, and that's the point right there. Matter of fact, let me read a little bit more. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. So the Lord judged the Egyptians. The Lord judged the Egyptians for enslaving us 400 years. All right. But the point was proven. Okay, this just proves that the Israelites existed and do exist. The Israelites were in ancient Egypt. Okay. We were in ancient Egypt 430 years. And out of that 430 years, we were enslaved 400 years. And you have Thutmose III, one of the pharaohs that ruled over us. In the tomb of Rekhmire, his advisor, which is his overseer in Thebes, you can look at the tomb. Inside the tomb, you can see paintings of Israelites building pyramids. Okay, building pyramids for the Egyptians. You see that? It says Hebrews making mud bricks. No, it's cut off at the top, but that's what it says. So this just proves the point. The Israelites were in ancient Egypt. Okay, and the Lord destroyed ancient Egypt for what they did to us. The Lord took them down. Okay, and I brought this out. Yaquab Har, he was one of the pharaohs of the Hyksos. Okay, so with that, I hope this is edifying. You know, it's a lot of heat in this book. You know, I can't get it all today, but the point was proven. All right, so hey man, at the end of the day, we can show you all kinds of proof, but if you're not of the elect, then you're not going to get it anyway. All right, so with that, I want to say all praise to Yahawashi, Yahawashi, Wahar Rakak Wadash, Shalom.